Hello dear students. Today the topic of our discussion shall be the British revenue settlements. Now what are revenue settlements? It is the job of the government to impose tax and collect said taxes. For collection of taxes there are various strategies. Now since agriculture is no longer a taxable subject in Indian administration, the strategies have changed from the salaried class and the organized sector. The revenue collection from unorganized sector is still a major problem to the economy of India. Now, in the past, when the agriculture was the prime mode of taxation, the British introduced three major revenue collection schemes or strategies. These were: first is permanent settlement, which was introduced in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and northern Madras. These are the regions where permanent settlement was used by the East India Company as a method of revenue settlement. Revenue settlement means the collection of taxes. Second one was the Rayotwari. Rayotwari was introduced in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, etc. Now then the final one was the Mahalwari. Mahalwari system of revenue settlement was implemented in the northwestern frontier. It is your Rajasthan, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, etc. So various regions of India were subjected to different types of revenue settlements. Now first let us study the permanent settlement, or the also popularly called as the zamindari system of revenue settlement. See, Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and northern Madras, these were very rich in the sense they had a good fertile soil and a lot of agricultural activity and produce would occur. So therefore, to efficiently tax the agriculture in these regions, the Britishers came out with an idea. Let's say there are 10 to 50 villages. They grouped villages into geographical regions. They made different geographical entities by combining villages. As villages is where the people live and their land is adjacent to the village. So therefore, a lot of all the villages were divided into certain parts, and these parts, the revenue collection would occur from a zamindar, a person say X. This land, these 50 villages were the property of X. Say X is the zamindar. Now X owns the entire 50 villages. And as a result of owning the property, this X would be liable to pay taxes to the British government. Now, why we also call zamindari system as permanent settlement system? It is because the taxes were fixed. The Britishers didn't take into account the climatic adversities, neither did they care about the agricultural produce. They did not, it was of no matter to them how much the villagers produced. All they wanted was a fixed amount as tax, and this fixed amount did not change for, let's say, 20 years or so. For 20 years or so, the tax remained same, which is why we call zamindari system as a permanent settlement. Now, according to this system, every year X, each province, each region had their own zamindars. Now, what these zamindars would go do is they would go to their property and collect tax. Now, if you were paying directly to the Britishers, the agriculturists used to pay in cash only. But for zamindars, it was different. You could either pay in cash or in kind. Now, see, there is no official percentage levied on the peasants. The percentage of tax or the amount of tax is levied on the zamindar. So here the zamindar had a loophole. Here, since this zamindar is the owner of the property, this person could collect as and how much they wished. So most of the time, though the tax bracket was great, these zamindars, they started pilfering the peasants. They taxed from 1/8 or almost 1/9. That means if a person produced 10 bags of produce, 9 or 8 bags were taken away as tax. Now, this is not directly corresponding to the amount that the zamindar has to pay to the British government, but these zamindars, they forced the cultivators into paying high taxes, and these taxes were liquidated. The zamindar sold these excessive food grains for a personal profit. Therefore, the zamindar's exploitation of the cultivators began. Now, with time, the British government realized, the East India Company realized that the taxes that they have fixed on these zamindars is very less, and these zamindars are involved in such practices. So, see, even if there was a drought, even if there was not sufficient agricultural produce, the zamindar still used to threaten these cultivators. If the cultivator was not performing, they used to change the cultivators at their will, which led to a widespread poverty among the cultivating class. So therefore, and another concept that these zamindars began over time was of absentee landlordism. Now, what these zamindars did was, usually these zamindars were well-off people. They used to live in urban centers, far away from their property. So, for the issue of collection of taxes, they used to appoint another person. Say X is a zamindar, official zamindar, which will pay taxes to the company or the Britishers. Now, since X was well off and used to live in urban areas, this X appointed another person, Y. He asked Y to collect the taxes. Now, this Y in turn again asked Z to collect the taxes. Now, we know X was exploiting the cultivators in a great way, looking for personal profit. Now, the same ideology was followed by Y and Z. These other absentee landlords began collecting further greater amount of produce as tax, which led to the decimation of the zamindari system. Now, after a few years of study of the zamindari system was proving to be not as beneficial to the company and Britishers, but it was rather becoming more beneficial to the middle people who used to collect taxes. So in order to get rid of this, the Britishers came up with a different idea, which was, see, initially if this land was given to the zamindar, it would be hereditary. It means after Y's death, Y's child would be the owner of the property and would collect tax. And the same way, after Z's death, again the next line, their children and so on. So this land was hereditary in nature. So looking at this pilfering, the Britishers stopped making these zamindari province as a hereditary. They began transferring zamindars. They started valuating zamindars based on their output, their taxation, how much tax can each zamindar garner based on that they devised a ranking system and they began transferring zamindars from one region to another region to optimize their profit. So this is everything regarding the permanent settlement. Now the next one is Rayotwari. Under the Rayotwari system, say there is a village here. Rayot essentially means farmer. So what, under this process, the Britishers or the company directly taxed the cultivators. Here they directly collected taxes from the cultivators. Here the land belonged to the cultivator itself, and the cultivator had to pay the taxes in the form of cash. For the collection of this tax, they appointed revenue officials. These officials would go every year, they would go around the villages and collect taxes individually from each cultivator. Now this is the idea of Rayotwari system. The next one is Mahalwari. Under Mahalwari, in Rayotwari we saw that the Britishers collected tax directly from each cultivator, but here the revenue officials would collect taxes from an entire village. The entire village would collect the taxes. There will always be a village head. The village head would collect the taxes from all the cultivators and push the money up to the revenue officials who gave it to the East India Company. So these are various methodologies or strategies of revenue settlement. In zamindari system, we saw the land was not of the cultivators, but the land was a property of the zamindar, who was supposed to pay a fixed amount regardless of the agricultural produce or the climatic adversaries. In Rayotwari, we saw the East India Company and the Britishers appointing revenue officials that would collect taxes directly from the cultivators. And next was the Mahalwari, where the revenue officials collected the tax from an entire village. So these are the various types of revenue settlements that were existent during the colonial era. Thank you.